Not quite yet. Hey,
Oh.
hey everyone.
Hello everyone, hi.
So I'm Guy and
I'm Alice. Nice to meet you all.
it's very hard. We haven't. Hopefully, we will meet you, and you'll send us lots of comments. But in the meantime, we're going to introduce. Well, Alice is going to introduce the Old Way online guide, which is long awaited.
Yes. So people who've been following the British Pilgrimage Trust will probably have been aware of this upcoming Old Way online guide for quite some time, and it's been a really exciting project to be involved with, and we are really excited to announce that as of today, you can access it on the website, which is amazing. And we've also got two different ways that you can access it, so that you can either get it just on its own, or it's also now part of a larger scheme, which is our Friends of the BPT scheme, which we're also launching today. So if you head over to our website, you'll see that there are lots of new options under a new drop-down tab, which is called Support Us. And there is where you will find all of the different ways that you can access the guide. But we thought today we would give you a little run through of what you can expect from the online guide, as we've been talking about it for so long. But it's good to kind of know the specifics of what you can expect when you get to the online guide. And also we'll probably talk a bit about our Friends of the BPT scheme and where we are hoping that it will go.
In the instance that we haven't covered everything, you can always comment and ask us questions at any time, like even now. And we'll try our best to answer those. So, Alice, just when did you start working on the Old Way project, and how's it gone for you, like this whole thing?
So I came to the British Pilgrimage Trust when I was still at university. So I had a supporter of the trust, and also my supervisor at university is the writer Robert Macfarlane, and we were talking together because I was very obsessed, and still am very obsessed, with nature writing as a genre, and I was getting really into sort of autobiographical stories of people going out into the wilderness and finding themselves and discovering all sorts of things by going out into the natural world. And because he was a supporter of the charity already, he kind of pointed me in the direction of the British Pilgrimage Trust. And I went out for a pilgrimage with Guy and Will when I was still at university, kind of escaping for the weekend. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences that I've had in my life. It really set me on a track for the kind of person I wanted to be, the things that I was interested in. And basically ever since then, I have been kind of tagging along to the British Pilgrimage Trust. I fought Will and Guy to convince them that what they really needed was an intern. And then I worked on and off with Will and Guy for quite some time. And then last November, I took on being the project manager of the whole of the Old Way. And a big part of that is the Old Way online guide. So I have been working on the guide since last April alongside Will, and then it was me taking on project lead from last November. So it's been a lot of brains coming together to make the online guide, and it's been a real community effort. As more and more people get involved, we get more and more feedback. Our last stage of the online guide has been our lovely beta testers. We had a group of 20 beta testers. Some of them had never gone on pilgrimage before. Some of them were really experienced walkers. Some people lived locally to the route. And they all came together. Really interesting, detailed feedback on what they thought of the online guide. That's all been put in now. So we have now basically got this amazing kind of organism that is a product of so many people's different experiences and knowledge, which we're now ready to launch on the website. And we're basically, in every single section of the Old Way online guide, there's an option for people to comment. So we basically want to get your feedback now. We want pilgrims walking on the route. We want to hear what your experiences are. You know, it will improve over time. It will develop over time. But now's the exciting day. You can go and see for yourselves what we've been working on for all this time.
That's great. I'm so sorry for the technical issues. I was trying to make Alice the full frontal of Alice, and I just didn't know how to do it. So
it's okay. It's fun to share.
Yeah, but so it's an amazing. Alice has been there kind of from the start, and just sort of, and as you say, you kind of badgered us, and then you're here, and you've worked so hard on this project. Like it's come on so through so many kind of stages and cycles, and Will walked it, I think, 2 or 3 times, and then built the kind of basis of the online guide, and then it's kind of over time changed a bit. Alice has worked on it. I've edited a bit, and then we've got these beta tests, as Alice said. So it's a kind of, it's now this kind of live form, and it's an entity that's going to keep growing in its way. And you've also done quite a lot of work with communities on the Old Way, haven't you, Alice? Like just a bit about that, because obviously this is potentially a product that will grow through community use.
Yeah. So as probably some people who are watching this will probably also have heard of the Sanctuary project that we're also getting ready for launch in the spring next year. It was meant to be launching this summer, but as with so many things, COVID has changed our plans slightly. So that's launching in the spring, but the Sanctuary project is really exciting. What we're trying to do is convince community centres along the Old Way to open up their doors to pilgrims who want to sleep overnight in them. Often those community centres are churches. For so many centuries, churches have been at the centre of community. So often when we're looking for a place that everybody knows, that's kind of well organised and well maintained, in rural communities especially, that's often a church. And so we have been reaching out to them for a number of years to ask whether they would like to open up their doors to pilgrims who want to sleep in them overnight for a small donation. So when Guy and also Will did guided pilgrimages, they would often, if they were more than one day, as they would get pilgrims to sleep in churches overnight. So it was kind of like a theory that would be a wonderful experience for people to sleep in churches was proved via guided pilgrimages and by Guy and Will's own experiences. And so going on from there, when people had sort of positive experiences welcoming Guy, Will and other pilgrims into churches, we kind of took it one step further and asked whether they'd be willing to open their doors kind of more generally to pilgrims who wanted to walk the path. And through that, you kind of get a real sense of how a community works together, and started up lots of interesting conversations with people from those communities about what they can expect from pilgrims walking through the communities. Obviously, what we're really hoping with the Old Way in general is that we will encourage local economies to thrive, also to encourage, possibly as the Old Way develops, new businesses to pop up around it. So what we've really tried to do from the start really is at the ground level within the communities, find out what people think about the route, how they want it to work for and with their community. And the Sanctuary project is a really exciting way that will also happen.
So yeah, because there's this kind of two-sided thing. There's obviously, I don't know how many people we're speaking to now who are on the kind of end of the community end, like providing this amazing route to everyone. But I imagine most people are actually, how do we go out on the route? How do we do it? And how's this guy going to help us? So
yeah,
like when you in making the guide, Alice, what were the most time consuming parts? What were the things that took the longest, and unexpected?
Well, the first thing to say is that sort of at the beginning, it was I was working alongside Will, who was the developer of the Old Way to start with. And when I came on board, the thing that took probably the most time is things like working out where all of the local pubs are. Where are the public loos that people can access? Where are the churches? And also, crucially, when are they open, and are they open to the public generally? Obviously, that's quite a different question now with the coronavirus creating lots of restrictions for people. But I was surprised by how difficult it sometimes is to find out whether churches are generally open or locked, or kind of what their timings are. Things like working out what the best bus routes into different sections are, how people can easily access in and out of the Old Way. one of the things that was really important to us as we developed the route was to not assume that every pilgrim who's going to walk on the Old Way is going to walk it in one big section. You know, if you wanted to do that, you'd probably be walking for 3 weeks. And some people, that is the most fantastic, brilliant thing ever that they definitely want to do and can definitely make time for, but not everyone can do that. So the sections are structured in such a way that you can walk kind of an 5 to 8 mile section in one go. And when we decided that that was how we were going to structure it, what was really important was to make sure that people could easily get transport in and out of each section, or every couple of sections. It's really important when you're walking. Obviously, we hope that nothing goes wrong, but it's also important to know how you can get out of a walk if you need to. And it's also really important to see if you can get to the start and end of a pilgrimage with public transport. You know, a huge part of what the British Pilgrimage Trust cares about is, you know, the impact that you're having on the environment as you're walking. And so getting the public transport links into the guide was really important. And I would say getting to grips with local bus routes was something that took a substantially long period of time. And actually, as the beta testers, especially those who lived locally to the areas, kind of started giving their comments in, it became very clear that kind of in some cases you just have to be a local to understand how those bus links work. But that's one of the wonderful things about the guide. It just allows for more and more knowledge to kind of go into it, and you'd be surprised at kind of the mundane things that you need to really get sorted for a guide like this to work.
And it's really great that all that has been done, so that's been taken care of on your behalf. And just say, anyone has any questions, just please, like, I know you're out there, so just write in some questions, and you do that by writing comments underneath the video you're watching on Facebook page. And then we can answer your questions. So, Alice, another question for you. Which bit of the Old Way are you most excited about walking that you haven't walked yet?
Okay, so I was thinking about this before we went on, and actually, so last week, Guy went on a recce of a small part of the route because we're hoping to start guided pilgrimages up soon. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that recce, but I know that Guy had an amazing day walking from Boxgrove to Arundel. I've seen some of the photos that he took of that section of the route, and it does look really, really spectacular. And strangely enough, a friend of mine was in Arundel that weekend. So I saw lots and lots of Arundel pictures coming up for me at the moment. So I feel like that's where I need to go next, which is good because I'm hoping to be able to go and recce there myself soon as well.
Yeah, the Arundel has this sense of the oldness of the Old Way because it's at that juncture between the Catholic Church and the Church of England, like this amazing time when everyone was killing each other, writing new Bibles, and like it was all quite hardcore, and actually the shift from pilgrimage to non-pilgrimage was actually also at that time too. So in a sense of in terms of an Old Way, a pilgrimage route, why does it not exist now? Why are we having to rediscover it in the 21st century? Was because of what happened, and Arundel was a bit of a fulcrum of where that all happened because you had the Duke of Norfolk, the Earl of Arundel at the time, and he was the uncle of 2 of Henry VIII's wives, so he was quite close, and so Henry couldn't really kill him in quite the same way he could kill any other Catholic. So there's this Catholic Church of England thing still going on with this iron gate grid in between the parish church and the Fitzalan Chapel where the Dukes of Norfolk are buried, Duke and Duchess of Norfolk buried, and basically that's just it brings it all to life. You know, that iron gate. It's just like everything you read about, everything you may like or dislike about what's happened in our country, like over the millennia, like it's kind of all right there. So it's a great place, but it's just one place amongst, I don't know how many settlements there are along the way.
Yeah, and also just to follow on from what Guy was just saying, actually, the Arundel section of the Old Way Online Guide is also another really good example of how it takes so many different people to make this guide happen, because Guy sort of tried to explain to me that story of the shift that happened. That's kind of really manifested in Arundel between Catholicism and the new faith coming in with the Reformation. And I tried to write from what Guy had described to me quite a few times, you know, the story of that. But actually, Guy had to kind of correct me again, make that really clear, you know, what the story of that particular place is. And for me, that's kind of the beauty of the online guide as a whole, is that, you know, it takes so many different people's knowledge to make something that has this kind of breadth of kind of understanding of the places that it goes through.
And it gives you just the right, hopefully just the right amount of information. So not too much going on, it's not too much to delve into and get put off, but it's also enough to be kind of bring all the different places to life. And we've been trying to strike that balance so much. And Alice has a great way with words, so hopefully you'll notice that. And then so we've got some questions coming through now. So Gail Simmers. So Gail's one of the beta testers, so we'll be eternally grateful.
Of the Old Way online guide for a really long time. Basically, ever since I've been working on the project, Gail has been poking me, going, "When is it going to be ready? And come on, let's, you know." She's been really keen, and actually, it's really amazing to have people who have been so supportive of this project for a really long time. That's why it's so exciting now to say, you know, we're finally at the stage where we're ready to show you what we've been working on. So yes, thank you, Gail. Her breadth of knowledge and her interest in the route has been a really, really great thing to kind of keep us all going when it's been like, you know, it's a lot of hard work to put it together. It's great to know that people have been supportive of it from the very beginning.
And also thanks, Gail, for saying it's a brilliant guide, because everyone else now knows it's a brilliant guide and we didn't have to say that. So thank you. Gail, there's a question for you. Which section did you walk? Jacky Murphy's asking you that. Okay, here we go. If the guide is only online, how does it work if you don't want to use a phone all the time, or if your phone dies? Alice,
okay,
I'm sure you've been asked that before.
Really good question. Okay, so this is a conversation that we've had with our trustees a lot of times as well. So the online guide is kind of our first offering for the Old Way. What I would say is that the way that it works is that you can go through, if you say, for example, you are walking the route, you get to the end of the day, you're charging your phone, you scroll through to the next section, you can either just save those pages on your phone, or you can take screenshots of those pages that you're going to be walking on that day. Or if you want, you can print off those pages. The other thing to say is that you can do all those things and then put your phone onto airplane mode, so you're not using a lot of charge. But this is an online product to start with. So we are planning to have a online guide, a PDF guide to the Old Way. And perhaps in time we will also have a physical guidebook. But this is, you're right, an online product. But the thing that's amazing about having it as an online thing is that it's super easy for us to edit. It can evolve all of the time, and the reach of an online guide can be really, really broad. So while of course there are some setbacks to choosing to have an online guide first, it also means that as this project grows, as the Old Way sort of continues to flourish, we can continue to update the online guide with new information. You know, as I say, if new businesses come up, we can make sure that they're listed in the guide. If the route we decide to slightly alter, we can do that really quickly, especially with the coronavirus, as kind of businesses are now having very different opening times to what they used to have, or information about businesses, is changing quite a lot at the moment. It means that in this stage of the Old Way, having an online guide that's very easily editable is a really good thing.
Great answer, Alice, because there's a reason. I know there are drawbacks, but they're actually more positives, I think, than there are drawbacks. And you can get around this PDF that's coming out. You can print it out, so you could. And this thing about not wanting to use the phone all the time is a very important one. But you can, as Alice says, the airplane mode means you can forget all the normal reasons you'd look at a phone, but just focus it just on the guide. And I think that's...
Yeah. And the other thing to say is that, and my experience at least, is that often a really good way of making sure that you really make the most of the time out on a pilgrimage is by being able to do some research beforehand and really get a sense of what it is that you're walking into before you set off. And so while you're walking, you're going to be looking at the online guide on your phone. Before you set out, that's also a resource that you can look at before you go out, get a real idea of where it is that you're walking, what the history is, all of the places that you should look out for before you set out as well.
Great. And Gail has answered the question. She said, I walked Titchfield to Arundel, which is actually quite a long way, I must say. Like, I don't know how many days it is, but you can find out by looking at the guide how many days it is. But she had to stop down to lockdown. Okay. Are there any others, any signs on the ground? This is a bit of a thing that will take a bit of unpacking.
Yeah, but also another really, really good question. So again, this is kind of a coronavirus shift of the way that we've been working. So our plan was originally that we would be putting signs down over the summer, but I'm sure, as many people can understand, that hasn't been possible under the circumstances that we have all been put into. So the signing is going to be happening over this autumn and winter. So that the signing on the ground will be ready for the next season in the spring. What I would say is that within the online guide, you have got an OS map, which shows each section of the guide, and then the line of the route itself on that OS map. So you can either print that out, or you can look at your own OS map and see where the route runs. You also have a downloadable GPX, which you can put on your phone. Again, with that, you can use that as a navigation system, put your airplane mode on, and use that to help you navigate your way. And if you want to know more about how to use GPX, we've got all that info on our website. And then the other thing that you've got to help you navigate is we've got an interactive Google map for each section, which again, you can use to navigate. So while on the ground at the moment, we don't have signs, we have got 3 different ways for you to navigate the old way through the online guide, so that you can do it now. Obviously, the ideal world will be next spring when we've got signs on the ground. But for now, if you are used to reading a map, and even if you're just familiar with using a Google Map application, then you should be able to walk the route.
Great. Okay, so she's saying, yeah, like the shells on the Camino Way. Jillian, I raised the same point. Jillian's point was about the online guide, and this is Chris saying, as a mountain leader, he has been trained to use maps to a high level, willing to help others who are struggling. So there you go. There's an offer. This is a community offer we've got here. Someone who has maybe expertise that Alice and I don't have in terms of training people with maps. And I'm sure Chris, you know him now. He's commented on the Facebook page, so you can get in touch with Chris.
But the other thing to add is that for those of you who would rather wait for a PDF or would rather wait for a walking guide for the route but want to see where it goes now, if you go onto our website, there's a free downloadable GPX of the route, which you can then download onto your device or onto a computer, so that you can see where the route runs. And if you are really keen on using OS maps rather than using digital tech, then you can just have a look at your OS guide, have a look at where the route's running, and plan your journey from there.
Okay, so this is a non-online guide related question. Are you also publishing a book of other pilgrimage routes today? Yes, it is a bumper day for BPT. We're doing the book as well.
Busy day for us.
A busy day. And this the old way is mentioned in that, and the holy places that are listed in more detail are also in that book. But there is a live stream that we happen at 1 o'clock, which is now on the Facebook page that you can watch now. So if you want to learn more about that, there it is. But right now we're going to go back to the online guide. Okay. Taking screenshots for each day is a good idea. Yeah, it's very simple to do. You just on an iPhone, you just press the top, the volume up button, and the button the other side of the phone. You press it at the same time, and it takes a screenshot. So it's very simple. Yeah. And Susan's apologizing for having to go, but she loves the opening up accommodation possibilities along routes. It's the big issue, and it always was the big issue in medieval times. Pilgrims needed places to stay, and one of the ways that we've built the old way is to link up Benedictine monasteries, like the ruined monasteries or where they would have been, which and part of their deal was to actually, they had to let in pilgrims to stay, and that you have to be hospitable. So that was part of the rule of Benedict. So, and the Old Way does connect up these kinds of places. Now, obviously, they destroyed. That was the problem, and that's why we have an accommodation issue today. Whereas in Europe, it's slightly different because monasteries still do provide sanctuary. In fact, there's a brilliant website called Monastery Stays that you can go anywhere in Europe, and I shouldn't be really doing this because it's not very on brand, but they still do provide accommodation at a low cost. We're going to have to create it a bit, and Alice, I'm sure, has got more to say about that.
Yeah, so the thing that comes up a lot for pilgrims who contact us about lots of different kinds of routes is the accommodation issue, especially people who are hoping to walk a pilgrimage but don't want to spend the money on, for example, a B&B every night, which if you're walking for a long time, or even if you're just walking for a few days, can become quite an expensive way of connecting to whatever it is that you connect to through pilgrimage. So we are kind of thinking of the Old Way as a platform to kind of ask these questions. How do you provide accommodation for all these pilgrims? How do you make sure that everybody can get the kind of accommodation that they can afford? And so for us, the amazing opportunity that the Old Way presents us is having our flagship route where we can practice and develop different ideas. So the sanctuary idea that I was talking about earlier is a perfect example of this. You know, we want to see if we can get communities engaged with providing pilgrims with low cost accommodation, making pilgrims feel welcome, and also on the other hand, you know, how do pilgrims interact with local communities? How does that relationship work? And having one specific route that we have focused a lot of attention on, building this guide, building relationships within the community, will mean that we can learn all the lessons from the Old Way, and then we can share that knowledge with other people who are developing routes across the country, and also help other pilgrims who want to walk not on the Old Way but somewhere else, you know, give them all the advice that we've learned through developing the Old Way.
And also eventually we'll work with the tourism sector to develop it further, because obviously meaningful travel is becoming a thing, you know, travel that's not just tourism going, you know, consuming a place and ticking off the checklist of going, but actually journeys that are inner journey as well as an outer journey. And there's going to be more and more of that kind of travel over the next decade, 2 decades probably, so the tourism sector will probably want to engage with this at some point. So and the more they do, the lower the cost will become. So
yeah,
there we go. You know,
I've got an aeroplane flying over my head.
I can't really hear it. This is good.
I just wanted to add to that one of the things that Guy and I have discussed a lot over this tricky period with lockdown is how actually we think that as people come out of lockdown, pilgrimage is going to be a really useful tool for people who are trying to kind of work out how to combine this kind of quiet, very contemplative life that we've all been living while COVID has been happening, while we've been very isolated. We've had much more time to think. Day-to-day schedules have been probably much more simple. We've had sort of less to do. And how do we combine that with kind of our very frantic, often frantic, busy lives that we had before COVID? And for us, pilgrimage provides an amazing opportunity for people to continue to take life a little bit more slowly, and to consider the big questions out on the path. So we think that kind of as people are thinking more in that way, the more kind of the tourism industry will also kind of cotton on to that being a really useful way of people spending their time away from work.
So here we have one from Sue Thompson. All sounding great. I like the membership options. When will the one-day guided walks? This is there's a lot in here. So firstly, she's saying she loves it, which is great. But the membership options, what is Sue talking about? We haven't mentioned anything yet.
I think she must be talking about the BPT, the Friends of the BPT.
There we go. So yes, the Friends of the BPT.
She knows more than you guys. She knows it's going.
We're launching it today. So yeah, should we go through the options now? This seems like a good time.
Yeah. So there are 2 different ways that you can access the Old Way online guide. The first one is you can just pay to access it for an 8-month period just on its own, just the online guide. But then the other thing that we're launching today is the Friends of the BPT scheme. So as you will all know, that we're a charity, and we rely on your donations to keep doing the work we do. And we have developed the Friends of the BPT scheme as a way of basically thanking people who are giving us donations. So we have a 3-tier system. We have got our Friends of the BPT who are offered the Old Way online guide. They are offered access to the Sanctuary Project when it opens in the spring. We're giving all of those members 10% off all our guided pilgrimages, which are going to be starting off in the autumn. They're also going to have a Cotswolds Outdoors discount because, you know, however much pilgrimage is in a journey, you do actually just need to have a raincoat. And we've got a special thank you letter for all pilgrims who have signed up to that BPT Friends scheme. And also we've got an exclusive mailing list. So that's the first tier. The second tier, you get all of that, but you also get one free guided pilgrimage a year. And then the third tier is you're a friend for life, and so you get all of those things that I've just said, but for life. And there's different pricing tiers for all of those, and it kind of just depends, of course, what your financial situation is, and also how much you want to support the British Pilgrimage Trust.
And at £800, it's a mere snip a life membership. So we'll be expecting lots of sign-ups. And when
will the one-day guided walks restart?
Well, you're saying the autumn. I think probably September is such a good time to walk. Okay, so yeah, I mean, we'll do them one a month probably through the winter, because I love walking through the winter, and it's a magical time, and very few other people are doing it, and so it's either the footpaths are clear, and the trees are bare, and it's just a wonderful time. So maybe a bit cold, but then it's a good way of being outside. Okay. How about hello Tracy? How many kilometers generally between accommodations, paid or unpaid at present? Wow. If there isn't accommodation, are folks walking with camping gear? Thank you.
Great question. So each section of the Old Way, there are 38 sections of the Old Way, and those are about 5 to 8 miles long. And at the beginning and end of each section, there is at least one accommodation listing. So some sections will have more accommodation listings than others. That is simply because there's more accommodation available in some places than others, and hopefully over time the number of accommodation listings, as businesses get up and running, and hopefully as businesses thrive around the Old Way, there'll be more options. So the answer to your first question is about 5 to 8 miles between each accommodation listing. If there isn't accommodation, are folks walking with camping gear? Yes. Usually that is how you would, I mean, if you wanted to camp, then you would have your camping gear. If you wanted to take up the Sanctuary Project when that runs in the spring, then you will need to bring your own roll mat and sleeping bag. But there, as I say, for every 5 to 8 mile section, there is an accommodation option. And if you don't fancy carrying your camping gear, then there are B&B and Airbnb options as well.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that while camping is physically an option, it's possible to do, but it is a civil offence, and as a charity, we cannot recommend it. Just to go back to the membership options, because I slightly was sort of making light of the life membership, but the actual price of these different things is £24 for the first tier, and it's I think £72 for the second tier, which means that you get the second tier is reduced price guided pilgrimage on top. So next question. Post-COVID, my friend and I, so here we go. Jillian wants to walk it in one complete journey, and she's come all the way from Tasmania. The idea. So, Jillian, we'll need to be in touch with you, because this is obviously a great undertaking, and I've never. You're like a Tasmanian pilgrim. I don't know what a Tasmanian pilgrim is, so we're going to find out how they differ. We're really glad
to hear that you're keen on the idea of sleeping in churches. I mean, having done it myself, I can say that it's unlike any other experience. I was quite skeptical about, cold stone church floor. Will I get kind of scared in the middle of the night? Would I feel uneasy? But I can honestly say I had a very, very good night's sleep whenever I've stepped in a church. And it's a very special thing to do. It's kind of, churches are, regardless of what you believe, churches have been at the centre of communities in the UK for an incredibly long time. There's a lot of community history in those places. So many important moments in people's lives are witnessed in churches, and so to spend that much time in a church can be a really special thing, regardless of whether you ascribe to the Christian faith or not. And that's what's really special about it. And the other thing I found, as somebody who doesn't describe themselves as a Christian myself, it's a wonderful way of engaging in a church that doesn't require you to believe anything in order to take up refuge within them. So it's a really special experience. I'm glad you're excited about it, Jillian.
Okay, Mark Vernon here. I'm amazed at the different vibe of the South Downs Way. What is it about being up there?
Good question.
It's definitely less logistical. It's a less logistical question than we have had so far. But what is it about being the South Downs Way? There's something about it's on its own. It's like a ridge on its own, and the rest is flat. I think that's quite an unusual experience, because the flat just goes on for so long, whereas it's so raised up, and it's actually it takes a while to get up to the top. So, and there's the chalk, obviously, what is the way that the water drains really beautifully, and then you've got it's also, it's quite narrow at the top, really. It's a ridge, so there are moments when you can see both directions, and you just get a massive scale of view. So I think that might be the reason it's special. I'm not sure. There must be maybe an energetic thing. It's obviously like a line through the land, and I don't know how that affects how the place feels. And but it would have been geographically, that would have been the thing that you look at as a prehistoric traveller, even before they had the word pilgrim.
I think, Guy, you've often said about the South Downs Way that, because of the way that it presents itself in the landscape, it's a very obvious route to take. Kind of the route through that particular piece of landscape is there's kind of only one. There's sort of the general direction really kind of is shown to you by the landscape itself, and so it's one of those places where when you're walking, you often can sort of feel that so many people for so many generations have walked across that landscape for various reasons. Now, of course, mainly we're doing that walk for pleasure or on pilgrimage for, whatever reason it is that we've gone to pilgrimage for. But of course, over time, that route will have been incredibly useful and needed for so many people. And I think one of the things possibly that makes that particular landscape so special is that sensation that you're walking on the footsteps of many, many generations.
And yeah, exactly. It kind of makes it feel like a track, because it has literally been a track for so long. And you start the South Downs section of the Old Way starts at around Arundel and goes on to where it finishes in Eastbourne. So
it's a huge section of the Old Way is through that beautiful South Downs landscape. It's
unbelievable. Okay, now thank you very much for that little respite, Mark. We're now back into logistics. How do you make this happen? Are you getting support from County Council's Rights of Way departments? Alice?
Yes, we are. Thank you, David. Yes, we are getting support from the County Council Rights of Way. That was a fun thing for me to get to grips with when I first started working on the Old Way. So kind of each region that the Old Way walks through, we've been in discussions with each county council, talking to them about what it is that we're doing, how we can set up signage in a way that obviously makes them happy, how you negotiate with local landowners to make sure that you're putting signs in the right place and adhering to all the rules. So yes, we are getting support from county councils in that they're telling us what we need to do, and we're doing that.
Great. Okay, next one. From Nemo or Nemo, can you remind what opportunities are available for those with limited or less mobility? Yes. Okay, so for those with limited or less mobility, we actually recently posted about this because I think the Times or the Telegraph did a big piece outlining all the different ways of engaging with national parks and with footpaths all around the country. And the South Downs National Park is no exception. It has about 3 or 4 sections along the Old Way that are specifically designed for wheelchair access. Although it's not the whole way because of Styles, and it's actually called Miles Without Styles, this particular scheme, although there are lots of other schemes too. So we'll put a link to that article at the end of this, so that you can find out all the other options too. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but
yeah, I'm really glad this question has been asked, actually, because this is something that we talk about a lot together in the charity, is what we can do for people who can't just get up and walk for miles and miles. That's not how everyone engages with pilgrimage. And especially during lockdown, one of the things we've been really thinking about is, how do you get that sense of going on a pilgrimage when, we've all been restricted during this time of what we can and can't do. And so one of the things that's great about the online guide is it provides you a way of seeing the whole route, of going through it, of knowing the history. We've got so many photos, there's so much information on there. So that's one way you can access it, by just reading, seeing all the photos, feeling that. But the other thing is, as Guy said, there's Miles Without Styles, which is a really, really great scheme, which suggests different routes that you can access really easily. The other thing is that on each section of the Old Way, there is an elevation chart, so you can see how difficult the terrain is. Often through a lot of the Old Way, it's quite easy terrain. But what I would really like to do in the future is have, for each section of the Old Way, it'd be great to have whether each section has got Styles in the way, or whether you could walk it from beginning to end without being impeded in that way. But it's not there yet. But that's something that we'd like to work on in the future, and it is something that we are, as a charity, thinking about a lot, especially recently.
Great. So Sue said we answered her question well, which is nice, and she's a great after lockdown incentive. Yes, we agree.
We agree.
Yes, no, I was sorry, Nemo. I was being light-hearted, and of course I was slightly saying it was not a snip, but it is a life membership, but the lower tier level is much more accessible, and indeed, not everyone can afford that, and I'm fully aware. Right, Tracy, thank you. Yeah. When you slept in churches, was bedding provided, or did you carry your own? I think the answer is you carry your own.
The answer is, unfortunately, you carry your own. Yes. So asking churches to also provide bedding, to wash it, all of that, for church wardens who are often very busy, we found so far a step too far for churches who are engaging in the Sanctuary Project. Maybe that'll change over time. Maybe that's another small business that could get involved in the Sanctuary Project. There is the Church Conservation Trust has a champing initiative, which is kind of along the same lines as the Sanctuary Project, but you kind of rent out an entire church, and it's all the bedded is provided. It's a much more expensive way of doing it, but that is one option if you want to spend a night in a church, but you don't want to carry all of your own equipment and perhaps want to be a little bit more cozy and comfortable. But if you've got a good roll mat and you've got a good sleeping bag, then you can be perfectly warm in a church, but you do unfortunately have to carry your bedding. Yes.
And always check the comfort level of your sleeping bag. Don't go for the extreme, because you're practically almost dead if you go at the extreme level. It's the comfort level. You want to check that the predicted temperature in the middle of the night, using BBC Weather or Dark Sky app or whatever. You can work out how cold it's going to get, and then you can match your sleeping bag to that. So that's the way to plan, just to make sure you will always be absolutely warm.
One of the things that Guy and Will taught me when I first started working with them is you can get sleeping bag linings, which you can, the silk ones. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but they're not hugely expensive, and they're very good at keeping you warm or cool, and you can just slot it into your sleeping bag. So if you find on the night that it's much colder than you expected, you can just put that in and you can be warm enough. So that would be my suggestion. I
think we're going to be working a little bit more on equipment and showing and helping people choose that. So that is something we're going to be working on more generally across the website.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. There, we'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
Lou.
Dog walking companions join us.
Yes, actually, so at the beginning of this year, when I had lots of meetings with the churches along the Old Way who were really interested in starting the Sanctuary Project. And the Sanctuary Project itself, the ideas are really developed with following from those meetings that I had with people who are actually in charge of looking after those churches. And the question of dogs came up a lot. Being Guy had a very small argument. Guy's not very keen on dogs and said they mustn't go in. No, sorry, jokes aside, most churches sort of agreed that if there was only one person booking into the church, then they would consider allowing a dog to stay in them. But obviously, if you've got multiple people staying in the church and they don't all know each other, obviously there are safeguarding issues involved with that, which we have covered. But the issue of having a dog in there is kind of, for many, the churches felt it was one step too many. But of course, the way that we're organising that project is that each church or each community centre will be in charge of deciding what does and what isn't allowed in each church. So it's up to them.
Okay, Felicity, thank you, Felicity. This is a real big up. You've done a huge amount of work. It is true. I'm actually going to say we actually have done a huge amount of work. Like, the lockdown was perfect conditions for really getting down into this online guide and building new things. And it's been a real joy actually to sort of really flesh out our offering, and that we can thank the lockdown for that, as much as it's been difficult for many people, and including ourselves in terms of in the same way as everyone else. But it has meant that we've got a lot together in the last few months, which is what you're seeing the fruits of now.
Yeah, we're really excited to share it with you all.
And yeah, thanks. Nice to know you're signing up as a friend. Great.
Amazing.
Here we go. Best. So yeah, Gail's saying start from Southampton. It is true. It's an amazingly pilgrim rich place, Southampton. I don't actually know. That's one of the few sections of the Old Way I haven't walked myself, but I know I can tell from all of the maps and the photos that you'll see on the online guide just how rich it is.
Yeah, there's so much going on in Southampton. It's I don't know if everybody knows the reason why we are developing the Old Way and where it came from, but basically there's a very old road map of Britain which is called the Goth map. It's the oldest one that there is. It was produced in the 1300s, and we don't know why. And on that road map there is this interesting red line that runs all the way from Southampton to Canterbury. So this is a road map. This is definitely a route that people were taking, and there are lots of different interpretations of what that red line represents, but we've used it as an opportunity to develop this route, taking in mind this amazing resource, the Goth map. And the reason we think that it started in Southampton was because at the period that the map was created, Southampton was one of the most popular ports in the whole of the UK. Because of the way that the waters work around that area. The tides come in twice as much as they do in most other places. So it was a very, very popular port for people coming into England. And so we think that people would have stopped at Southampton and then walked their way to Canterbury. So not only is this an incredible route for the UK, but it's also a route that kind of describes an international relationship with people coming from overseas to England to walk this route. And for us, I think that at the moment that's a really wonderful story to be telling, of people travelling to this country to pay their respects at Canterbury, and taking the landscape, for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a really wonderful and uplifting story to be telling at this moment in history.
And Thomas à Becket, who died in Canterbury to create the shrine that then attracted all the pilgrims, is a European saint. He's the second most dedicated saint behind St. James of Santiago de Compostela. So the other big saint of shrine, which everyone knows, is Santiago de Compostela. Thomas Becket in Europe ranks second behind him in terms of the number of churches dedicated to him all over Europe. So the Europeans would have been coming from all over, and Southampton would have been an obvious choice, hence why it's still so pilgrim rich. Okay, Joanne, it was lovely to be with you in Avebury, yeah, for real. And greetings from Colorado. Wow.
Oh, wow. That's
Where would you
exciting.
suggest we start? Tia asks.
So I think that was Gail's answer, perhaps, was when she said.
Maybe that's true. Okay.
I mean, start wherever. I mean, go through the guide, have a look at it for yourself, and see where calls to you. You know, everyone comes to the pilgrimage for different reasons, and also practically, everyone comes from different parts of the country or even the world. So make up your own decision and follow your instinct. But the route starts at Southampton and goes to Canterbury. That would be kind of the most obvious choice would be to start in Southampton, perhaps. But I would say follow your instinct.
If you're thinking just in terms of numbers of weeks, though, 2 weeks from Arundel, 1 week from Battle or Rye, that sort of, I'd say 1 week from Battle, 2 weeks from Arundel. And that's one way of thinking of it too. Okay. Okay, we've got people making apologies. Tracy saying thank you. She's scooting off to a meeting. We've all got meetings. So Tia says, is the Gough map available? It's actually Gough. It's very hard to. It's Gough, and this was a map collector in the 18th century or 17th century, and it's named after him. And actually, it's available digitally, I think, through the Bodleian, because the Oxford Library is over the last year has actually put it on display. And there's definitely a digital scan. I've seen it, but I don't know exactly where it is, but it probably is online. And certainly if you type in Gough map.
Sorry, I talked over you. That was an important
bit. It's fine. Yeah.
But there's also, if you go onto our website and you click through the Old Way pages, you'll see that we do have some pictures of it on our resources. But yeah, guys, right, if you look to the Bodleian, they'll probably have a more high res, probably more detailed image and information on it.
Yeah. Just this on this dog issue. Just you need to always check with pubs. Obviously, you know that before. That's the only thing really. And churches, that most of them will probably be okay. But again, check. Virginia, wow,
very exciting. That's very exciting.
Summer 20 or 21 or 22. You see, that's long-term planning.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, hopefully this guide will really help you with that, because there's so, not only is it the guide itself, but we've tried to kind of pack it with as many links to other resources as we can possibly think of. So if you've got a while before you're actually planning on embarking on the route, there's a huge, trove of information that you can get really dug into before you start.
Here we go. This is the answer to Tia.
Thank you, Jacky.
Goughmap.org. There you go. That's pretty. I don't know how new that is, but that's brilliant. Okay, well, there are no more questions as yet, so we're potentially coming to the end. We've almost had an hour.
Yes, if anyone's got any more questions at the last minute, please do drop them in now. So
Alice, what are we going to be asking of our friends and of people who are engaging with this guide over time to keep it fresh, to keep it on, to keep it up to date? How can they help us?
So that's a really good question. So as I think I said at the beginning of this live stream, on each section of the guide, there's an option to send feedback, and that doesn't post up just immediately onto the guide. It comes to us for us to have a look at. And then that will be fed into. We're going to be updating this guide probably on a 3 to 6 months basis, or more often if that proves to be the thing that we need to do. So basically, the more people walk it, or if you're a local to the route and you have knowledge that you think that we haven't got included, or you see something that you're not quite sure is right, we've obviously done our best and we've trialed it and we've sent it to lots of people to approve, but nothing of this size is ever going to be completely comprehensive and perfect, especially not in its kind of first year or two. So what people can do to help us to make this to grow is to to walk it, and to let us know what you think, let us know what your experiences are, let us know if you have ideas for how the guide can grow, how the old way can grow, you know, how we can be more inclusive. You know, we had some great questions about accessibility, you know, for people with limited mobility. Those are the questions we love being asked. You know, it's really important that you know, we believe in pilgrimage as something that is a wonderful way for people to connect to nature, to yourself, to if you have a religion, to connect to your religion. You know, we feel that for everyone it's an amazing opportunity for connection. So whatever we can do to make that more possible for more people, that's what we really want. So if you've got feedback on how we can improve what we're doing to make it more appealing to more people and more user friendly, then that's what we want. You know, the more comments and the more feedback, the better, as far as we're concerned. You know, we really see what we've produced and what we're doing with the Friends scheme as really solidifying the community around the BPT and giving more people more opportunities to feed into the work we do.
And just in the same way that you comment on this video, and then people can see your comments and it's kind of recorded, so that will be the same with the website, as Alice just mentioned. You make the comments and they stay there and they can be read by others. Even if we don't action it immediately, your comment will still be read by others. So no trolling, obviously, but I'm sure that won't be the case with our friends. So another question here. What guidance will be available to getting started for varying levels, i.e. afternoon walk or day walk? Okay, what guidance will be available? This is, I think, the key thing with shorter walks, in order to turn them into a pilgrimage and make them feel meaningful, just make sure you start with an intention, and just something you want to bring into your life or let go of, or a question you want to answer, just to dedicate the journey to that. And then hopefully that even the shorter distance, you'll gain some kind of movement on that issue internally. So that's a more spiritual answer. But in terms of practically speaking, it's all about making sure about the public transport, the beginning and end, making sure that if there's no other way of doing it, getting a taxi from the end back to the beginning, or whatever. But we obviously don't want taxis to become the main thing. So that's why Alice has worked so hard on the local buses and the transport. So really, those are the key things. And also maybe in this COVID time, just making sure that churches are going to be open, or places along the way that you want to see are going to be open. There's a little bit of extra work you can do before you go. Hopefully they are mostly open, but they're opening more and more, but some are still closed. Will the route be open all year round? Well, the countryside is open all year round.
Yeah. So it's not something we can open and close. It's, you know, now you've got the information. Now the Old Way online guide is out, and you can walk it whenever you wish to. The thing that will change is obviously the weather conditions will obviously make it more possibly, well, depending on what you look for in a pilgrimage, it might make it a bit more enjoyable if you choose a kind of a warmer, drier time of year. Also, you might want to consider some local businesses are not open all through the year. So those are the things that you'll need to consider when you decide what time of year you're going to set out on your pilgrimage. But practically speaking, the route is there to be walked whenever it is that you choose to walk it.
Excellent. What info can be accessed about the different walks for those coming from the Bristol, Wales way, Christian, non-Christian? Okay, well, if you're not wanting to walk the Old Way specifically, and you're wanting to walk more of Wales and West Wales and that kind of thing, then we've got the book, which has all the different routes outlined, region by region, and then our website has routes all over the country. The reason we're focusing as a flagship on the Old Way, and it's the south of England, and yes, we're the British Pilgrimage Trust, and you could say we're south focused a bit, but there are many reasons for that, which is this ancient tradition. It's an old track that goes through a national park, most of the old tracks are now motorways. On the Goff map, if you compare the Goff map, like old routes, they are now motorways because they were the most obvious routes. So there's something special about the Old Way that marks it out. Also, the transport links are very good in the south, so they make this section by section walking easier. Whereas if you're up in the north, it's you have to walk for longer, and we hopefully will be working more in the north as we go further, and Wales too. But we had to start somewhere, and this is where we started, the old way.
Yeah, and so just to reiterate what Guy's saying, if you're thinking that pilgrimage is something that you'd like to explore, but you're not sure if it's just the old way you want to look at, if you go onto our website, you'll find the routes section, which has got a huge number of pilgrimages throughout Britain, which you can have a look at. There's lots of information, not as much information as in the Old Way Online Guide, but a good amount of information to get you started. And in terms of Christian and non-Christian, the British Pilgrimage Trust is very much an open to all, bring your own beliefs charity organisation. We're not promoting any religion in particular. Pilgrimage is open for everyone, and people come to it for all sorts of reasons.
But actually, that Bristol and Wales and West Wales, which is Cornwall, and then Cornwall, and then Wales itself. There are a lot of prehistoric sites around there, and amazing holy wells, stone circles, big towering megaliths, and like mountains. So there's a lot going on for the non-Christian pilgrimage places that may date back 10,000 years, so or 6,000 years. So that it's a good place for a different kind of experience. So is there anything else, Alice, before we've now reached the hour mark, which is usually a good time to finish things, but anything just that comes to mind, any aspects of the Old Way Online Guide that we haven't really discussed yet?
I think I can close by just giving a very brief summary, just to remind everything of what you can expect to find in the Old Way Online Guide. And just to say that if you do have any further comments, we're always checking our social media. So if you've got further questions, you can ask. We've also got an email address. It's just info@britishpilgrimage.org if you want to contact us with any further questions. But just to summarise, within the Old Way Online Guide, you've got 38 sections over about a 250-mile route. Goes from Southampton to Canterbury. You've got the main route, but you've also got some alternative route options. So not everyone has to walk the same way if you're going on the old way. And within each of those 38 sections, you've got descriptions of the route and lots of historical knowledge there. You've got the Google map, interactive map, which has got each holy place, holy site on that Google map. You've got accommodation listings, and you've got food and drink listings. You've got elevation charts to show you how difficult that particular section of the route is. You've got your transport links. What else have you got? You've got so many photographs, beautiful photographs. You've got a real sense of the route.
And each waypoint on the Google Maps has like phone numbers, websites, and so there's access. So it's kind of funnel out. You get so much information from it.
There's a lot to explore. We're just really excited to be handing it, or to be showing it to our community. We really can't wait to hear what you think, and to take in all of your experiences once you start walking the route, and we look forward to whenever we've got more news for you on how it's developing.
And don't forget to become a friend, because that's also launching today. £24 for a year, giving you access to the online guide all the time, access to the sanctuary scheme when it comes available, then money off discount. I think it's 15% off Cotswold Outdoors, 10% off guided pilgrimages, and then if you want to come on guided pilgrimages more, you can also become a firm friend, which is the next level up. And so thank you all very much, and you've been great asking questions, and it's really kept us all alive.
Lovely to meet you all, so thank you very much.
So bye from me.
Bye everyone, really lovely to meet you. Bye.